What's good, what's good, what's good? Y'all already know who it is. Asharenu, we back in this bitch once again. So we're going to give everybody an opportunity to come in. So in the meantime, I'm going to be rolling up, some of the product. And we're going to get started. So the title of this video is called The 4 Aeons Part 2. For those who are unfamiliar with the 4 Aeons, that was my very first live stream that I did ever back in 2017, maybe early 2017. So this is part 2 to that, because this is a video request, from one of the subscribers here and one of the members of the website. They asked me to go deeper into the 4 Aeons, as well as, what's the difference between the 4 Aeons in the age of Aquarius, so on and so forth. So we're going to, make a distinction between, when I'm speaking about the 4 Aeons, and what does it have to do with the age of Aquarius. So we're going to let everybody come in. In the meantime, we're going to roll up the product, and we're going to get to it. So hopefully everybody is good out there. And if you're not good, get better. Fuck with these spirits. Get everything organized that needs to be organized. Build up your courage. Build up your endurance. So we're going into something real heavy. We're going to make sure that we're in the zone for it. So right now we have a little chemical mixture, of herb. And we're going to be mixing it with some tobacco. Tobacco is good for helping you to channel spirits and connect with spirits. So for anybody who has issues with spirits, and communicating with them and understanding their nature, so on and so forth, invocation or evocation, you have any problems in those areas, I'm kind of turn this down a little bit, you have any issues in those areas, then tobacco will help. So it's not about smoking it because it's poison or it's good or bad or the taste. You do it for your spirituality. And we know with the herb, and what I mean by the herb, the marijuana, the ganja, the sativa, the indica, this is channeling the energy of Saturn. So the tobacco is bringing in the energy of Mars. The herb is bringing in the energy of Saturn. So you have a combination of Saturn and Mars. Mars is pure masculine energy, and we know Saturn is the crystallized energy that has now become crystallized. So we're talking about masculine energy or yang or yang energy becoming crystallized, crystallizing yang or yang energy. And we know that yang energy is masculine energy, so it's more about details. It's more about, things being, logical and detail orientated. So bringing your dreams, your visions inside of your mind into existence. This is what happened when you, mix that cannabis, with that tobacco. And not just the blunt wrap, because I have a blunt wrap here, but I have a certain type of tobacco that I'm also putting inside the blunt wrap as well. So it's herb in here with, some sweet tobacco. Like, I'm not a big fan of the taste of tobacco. It's not really my thing, but I understand the uses of it. So therefore, I'm like to make it, useful. I make sure that it's a little sweet. So right, tobacco is a lot more sensual. Tobacco is a lot more sensual. So when you smoke herb, it tends to take you to cloud 9. You will end up just being on a couch all day. But when you hit that tobacco, when you get that Mars going, it keeps you focused. So you can still do your job. You can still have conversations with people. You can still, engage in the worldly activities, when you ground it with the tobacco. And again, if you just fucking with the herb, that is shit. It's more internal. It's more of an internal experience. So you can just be on the couch, glued to the couch, and but you're having, you're journeying internally. You're going through your soul journeys. So that has its use and that has its purpose. But if we're talking about, you want to make sure that you're competent enough to still engage in physical activities, then you want to make sure that you had a tobacco with you, so it doesn't take you too far. So the tobacco will keep you grounded, as well as still allow you to travel and accelerate your mind. So, I wanted to hit you with the scientific shit as well as the spiritual shit to make it holistic. We bring both worlds together. So I see it's quite a bit of you in here already. So let's just get into the video while I'm still rolling up. I don't want to waste anybody's time here. So once again, the title of this video is called The 4 Aeons, part 2. If you have not seen part 1, that was my very first live stream, you know, when I was in Los Angeles. You know, it was a very, very interesting video, and that's kind of what started this whole dark side wave that I've been engaging in, you know, from that point on. You know, because it was the age of Set. But we're going to get into it, and we're going to go into the origins of it and what it's really talking about. So let's start right here. And again, once I'm done rolling up, you know, I go out so the lighting will be better. I'm just right here, you know, to make sure that the wind isn't too powerful. So, you know, it's not going to be dark the whole time. But we're going to get into it, you know, multitask. Any herb recommend smoking outside of weed or tobacco? You can really smoke anything. Like I got rose blunts as well, you know what I mean? Well, let me show you. You think I'm just talking? Let me let you motherfuckers see what I'm talking about, right? Give me 1 second. All right. So, as we see here, this is a rose petal. You know, so it's a little product right here from the rose blunt. So anyway, to answer the question was, you know, do you recommend smoking anything outside of cannabis and tobacco? And the thing is, you can literally smoke whatever you want to smoke, really. You know what I mean? It's not really what you should or shouldn't. See what the herbs do. See, this is how it works. This is how it works for those who may not understand. How it works is this. When you smoke, you know, when you inhale the vapors of plants or herbs, it gives you an internal experience of the spirit of the herb. The spirit of the herb will communicate with you because it becomes an internal experience. So it's different from just using herbs. You know, they mix it, you know, they do their chemical mixtures for teas and external use and all that. But if we're talking about internal use, like you're actually inhaling the smoke and the vapors, then you get a feel of the personality and the spirit of the herb, and then that will give you insight into how it can be used. So, you know, you may, you know, roll up something else in the rose petal, and you get a sense of the rose, and you're like, okay, I can see how this energy can be useful for me in certain type of scenarios and situations. You know, so you get a better feel of the personality, you know, of the herb when you have an internal experience with it, right? You know, so just answer your question. You just go, you know, you got to go through trial and error. You know, go to any of these smoke shops. You know, they have many smoke shops, you know, throughout, you know, the continent, and they have, you know, certain herbal mixes. You know, they offer certain herbal mixes with, you know, various herbs, you know, things of that nature. So if you want to go beyond tobacco and weed, then, you know, check out your local smoke shops. Maybe the bigger ones, the more popular ones that offer more than just tobacco. Then, of course, we have the internet, so you will be able to, you know, find it online as well. If you can't find it locally, you know, you can get it shipped straight to your front door. So it's just really all about, you know, trial and error, see what works for you, because, you know, everybody's going to have their own type of formulas, right? So let's get into the video here. Now, where does this concept of the 4 Aeons come from? The concept of the 4 Aeons comes from Aleister Crowley, you know, who was the originator of Thelema. For those who are unfamiliar with Thelema is a spiritual system or tradition, you know, that was channeled by Aeons through Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley in 1904 went to Egypt, and he was around, you know, the ancient monuments. I believe he was married at the time. His wife, you know, was in a particular museum or a place of that nature, and there was a certain artifact that began to speak to her, you know, because, you know, the women are more intuitive. So the spirit began to speak to his wife at the time, or his girl, whoever she was. So she went back and told him, you know, come to this place, you know, Aeons is requesting your presence. So Aeons, who was described by Aleister Crowley himself as a black man, you know, with you know, like with a turban on, you know, like the Muslim, you know, like the Middle Eastern, you know, Indian look. You right? So through Aeons. Aeons transmitted the religion or the tradition, however you want to call it, to Aleister Crowley. So a lot of the information, especially his foundation. Now, of course, he put out a lot more. You know, he mad books, mad information. You know, it's a lot of information about many different things. But in terms of Delima, what he's recognized for and what he's known for comes from Aeons, when he traveled to Egypt with his wife at the time, and they received transmissions. This is back in like 1904. So one of those transmissions, or after he received these transmissions, he started to understand the Aeons. So there's the 4 Aeons. There's the Aeon of Osiris, there's the Aeon of Isis, there's the Aeon of Horus, and there's the Aeon of Set. Those are the 4 Aeons. The 4 Aeons symbolize not only external cycles that the world goes through, but it also represents internal cycles. So personally, a person may be on an internal level, they may be in, let's just say, the cycle or the Aeon of Osiris, right? And internally, then a person may internally be on the Aeon of Set, so on and so forth. But let us go a step further here. So what we want to do is, what is the attributes of each Aeon? The attributes of each Aeon is this. Let me just wipe my face off a little bit. If we're talking about the Aeon of Osiris, this is the Aeon of tradition. This is an Aeon where tradition rules. He was more so about the 5th dimension versus the 4th dimension, which is the Aeon of Set. So Osiris is more about in terms of, you know, mind over matter, you know, alchemy. You know, we don't need to engage in all this bloodshed. We don't need to engage in all these religious wars. We don't need to be at odds in war with each other and just kill for no reason. You know, we can work our minds and unlock the potential of our minds to do great things. You know, so that was more so his stance. So the age of Osiris is the stance of, you know, let's go towards tradition and spirituality, right? Now with the age or the Aeon of Isis, this is an Aeon where women ruled. So you can say the Aeon of Osiris, it was all about the men. Men. The age of Isis, now the women, is more of a matriarchy now. You know, you have women leaders and women kings. You know, and the great mother was the highest of the high. They say, you know, the universe is feminine, right? So this is the time where the mother, the great mother, the woman was worshipped. And, you know, even today's time, you know, you have like the, you know, the black woman is God. You still have these things on, you know, because this comes from the Aeon of Isis, you know, who was a magician, who was a sorcerer, you know, if you read her stories, right? So this is the age where women were worshipped, women were put on a pedestal, women were empowered to display their divine feminine and their divine masculine, right? When we go to the Aeon of Horus, now this is the Aeon of the New Age, you know, and this gets into like the age of Aquarius, so on and so forth, where now it ain't about the man, it ain't about the woman, it's about merging the two together, right? It's about merging the two attributes together, because you also, you know, Horus is sometimes depicted with Set, like it's a two-headed deity, where Horus and Set, I'm not sure the name of it, but this is the realm of, this is the new age, new information, where now we're not going to focus on idols and statues and things of this nature. We're going to create from the nothingness, which is, you can say, it kind of resembles these times, like we're more so coming out of that, the age of Horus, the new age. Because, you know, you can say like the 2012 thing, but, you know, obviously it started before that. Is that why transgenders are on the rise? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, because these are ancient archetypes. These are ancient archetypes. This is not nothing new. Right? So let us continue. So with the age of, or the Aeon of Horus, now the two become one. So now it's all about a youthful spirit, you know, the youth. Why? Because the spirit is most in tune with the youth, because they don't have resistance in their mind. Their subconscious has not been programmed, so they can receive the spiritual transmissions in the purity. So that's why, you know, like the babies are the best. The babies are the best. It's all about the future, the future, the future. So that's that thought, the futuristic thought. You know, we have to say the babies, we have to cultivate the minds of the kids. You know what I mean? The new age, because they have the spiritual transmission. They are the purest in the spirit realm. Right? Now, when we get to the Aeon of Set, now we're integrating the underworld to that. So now that we understand, you're like, well, we got the futuristic thought. We got to be futuristic. You know, we don't need to study anything pretty much beyond the 19th century, because that's what the New Age represented. The New Age represented. That's why I speak all of, for anybody who's following, what century am I talking about all the time? The 19th century. Alistair Crowley is born, Helena Blavatsky, you know, Elijah Muhammad, Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, all these great minds. This is all the same 100-year span. So with so much happening in this 100 years, it's absolutely ridiculous. It was the New Age. So a lot of the foundation that was laid down, this was, you know, with the whole, before it was a new age, it was a new thought. Before it was a new thought, it was a transcendental, which originated in Europe in the 19th century, right? Purcell Beverly Randolph, absolutely, who was the godfather of sex magic. He was the first one to speak about sex magic, because a lot of his works were in French, and they had to be translated. So a lot of his works is not even in English. So that's why most people don't know about him. But I know exactly who you're speaking about. He is also from the 19th century. Just like Master Farad Muhammad, who started the Nation of Islam, is from the 19th century. And before he went to Detroit in 1930, he was teaching people in California. And they were, you know, he had secret information. He disappeared from California, went to Detroit, started the Nation of Islam. They didn't like that, so they had a nationwide hunt for him, and that's why he disappeared in 1934, I believe. You know, he had to disappear off the face of the planet because they was after his ass. And that's how much dedication that they had back in those times. He was willing to put his life on the line, you know, to let it be known like who and what we are. You know what I mean? They wanted to take his head off. And you also know Elijah Muhammad was on the run for 7 years. They were trying to take his head off. So, you know, all the information that we may take for granted in today's times, motherfuckers was really having to go through real wars. Motherfuckers was trying to take off heads because they wanted to reveal the truth about not only our origins, but the origins of everybody on the planet. And again, that's what destroys, you can say, white supremacy or the system, when you know the truth, when you know the true origins. So because they were putting that real shit out there, you know, it was a worldwide hunt, not a worldwide, a nationwide hunt. So this information was never, you know, looked upon in a graceful manner like it is in today. It sounds like it's cool to be spiritual, crystals, meditation. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have to necessarily hide it because it's kind of accepted now, but this has not always been this way. Motherfuckers is taking your head off if it was known that you were a witch, so on and so forth. So what we have here is, when we get to the Aeon of Set, the Aeon of Set is now we have to integrate the underworld into everything that we're speaking about now. So we're talking about the male idol, you know, the masculine principle with the Aeon of Osiris. We're talking about the feminine principle with the Aeon of Isis. Then we're talking about the child or the future with the Aeon of Horus. And now we integrate the underworld, which comes from Set, which is the fourth dimension. The Western Hemisphere is the fourth dimension. The Eastern Hemisphere is the fifth dimension. That's why when you go to India, China, Japan, you know, they're all about ascension, alignment. You know, the crown chakra of the planet is in Tibet, right? So they're all about fifth dimensional thinking. You know, Hinduism and all that. Hinduism came to America in the 19th century as well. So all that transcendental meditation, you know, when you see the yogis and all that with the Beatles in the 60s and all that started in the 19th century. Hinduism came to America in the 19th century. This is why it's important to know the timeline, because when you can know the timeline and you know where all this stuff originates from, you can study the source. So you don't have to worry about all this watered down bullshit. In today's times, everybody that's giving you watered down information or watered down bullshit. That, you know what I mean, but they're not directing you to the source. But again, because I don't give a fuck about none of that, I'm going to let you know the real and direct you to the source and let you study the source, and you come to your own conclusion because you get it pure and you get it raw and uncut. So when we get into the Aeon of Set, now we integrate the underworld, and this is where we are now. This is the time we are in now. Now it's more about integrating the underworld into the spirituality. So now that we understand ascension, the fifth dimension, we understand the fifth dimension. Motherfuckers been talking about the fifth dimension since the 70s. You know, they started talking about the new age in the 70s, even though that came from Helena Blavatsky. It was Helena Blavatsky who was the first to say anything about the age of Aquarius. And from her words, she was talking about the Aryan race. She was like the coming. Read the book, the coming of a new race. I forget the author. That was the book that first spoke about the Aryans, and we know the Aryans were spoke about by Hitler as well back in Germany, you know, in the early 20th century. He spoke about the Aryan race, the coming of the alien race, the Aryan, not the alien race, but the Aryan race. And Germany was the most advanced, you know, country on the planet at one point in time, you know, when he was in power. He was the ruling force of the planet. You know, so they were pulling that information, you know, from that source, from Helena Blavatsky and, you know, many of the occultists from the 19th century, which is the 1800s, right? So the Aeon of Set is integrating the underworld into, or integrating the fourth and the fifth dimension as one. You know, so that's why we more so have a separation between like occultists, you know, and spiritualists. So, you know, they're the people who do yoga, you know, they embrace the Eastern philosophies, you know, the yoga, the meditation, you know, all those things, the Reiki healing, you know what I mean? All of the Eastern philosophies, they cool with that, but you don't really hear them speaking about the underworld at all. You know, they not with the fourth dimensional shit. If anything, they renounce, you know, being worldly or being too connected to the physical. You know, they renounce that. Because we are in the Aeon of Set, Set is promoting you. So now it's time to study the underworld. Now it's time to study the hellish realms. Now it's time to study the demonic forces and integrating yourself with demons. Right? Because at this point, we understand that the spirituality has been watered down. It's watered down. You're not getting the pure anymore. Why? Because it has been infiltrated. So you're not really getting that pure. Like, unless you are a reader and you have read these people's works, you're not getting the pure. YouTube ain't giving you the pure. All these motherfucking speakers that come before you that only give you half the story, you're not getting that pure. Everybody just they pick and choose what they want to say, and they have whatever their own agenda. You know, so this is infiltrated. But when we start talking about the underworld, it ain't too many people that's embracing that part of it. And that's why that is the purest spirituality on the planet in these times. Why? Because it's not really infiltrated, because people don't want to deal with that. They ain't trying to deal with hell. They ain't trying to deal with demons. They ain't dealing with it. So the only people that's really speaking about it, the only people that's really about it, they really know. They have to be in tune with the underworld or the fourth dimension. The root chakra of the planet is in California. So we have the crown chakra, which is in Tibet. The root chakra is in California, right? Because somebody's asking, tell me how the Crips originated. The Crips are, you know, this is because the root chakra is in California. That's why Los Angeles is gangland. You know, the Devil's Gate is there because the root chakra of the planet is in California. So it's the land of the street fighters, right? You know what I mean? Exactly. That's why, you know, California, you know, that deals with the Hindu deity Kali. You know, Kali is all about madness and destruction. And yes, Kali is root to the root chakra, the energy of Saturn. Exactly. Mount Shasta. Exactly. So therefore, can you recommend some of the best occult books? It ain't really about the books, it's about the people. See, this is also what I want to make clear. You know, I still ain't even rolled my shit. You see, when the spirit come in, I've been speaking 23 minutes. I was supposed to light this up 20 minutes ago. You know what I mean? I ain't even thinking about this. We have to understand the historical aspect, not just the books. Like, for example, if you're just reading books, but you don't necessarily know what part that the author played in history, then you only get half the story. Like, if you're just reading the information, just the pure information, that's one thing. But when you actually study the author and the author's history and what part that they played, like how important was this book in the time that it was released on and so forth, did this change the whole mentality of the people? So when you also study the author as well as their works, now you're getting the full story. And you're like, okay, now you can, okay, where did they study? Where did they go to study? Where did they learn from? When you study the author, you can go to the source of where they got their information from. You get what I'm saying? So when you study the author, you can trace back the information and see where it comes from. So now you're getting it in the most purest form. So it was Helena Blavatsky who was the first to talk about the age of Aquarius. It was Aleister Crowley who talked about the four Aeons. So just to make that distinction, but this is all, in the same time period. So this is all coming from the same, not the same person, but all around the same time. These energies were prevalent in the 19th century. So it's all coming from the 19th century, right? So again, this is before New Age. This is before New Thought, Napoleon Hill, and all that. This is the Transcendental movement, right? So, I would say study the 19th century in its entirety. So you going beyond Helena Blavatsky, you're going beyond Aleister Crowley. You are studying all people that contributed to the spiritual information in the 19th century. You really don't need to study anything before the 19th century, because all the information before that is dead. It's not going to do anything for you. So you don't even have to go beyond that, because the universal knowledge was revealed in that 100-year period. So everything that was like a summary of the whole world before that was summarized in the 19th century. So anything about the occult, spirituality, anything spiritual related can be found in the 19th century. You really don't need to go no further back. And if you do want to go further back, you can go to John Dee, Johndee. John Dee. I believe it was the 14th century or the 15th century. He was the first person to speak about occult science, at least publicly. Not that he invented it, but he was the first person to speak about, occult science being astrology, alchemy, and earth magic or divination. He was the first one to lay down those principles. Even though they coexist in and of themselves, you can be into astrology and not be into alchemy. You can be into alchemy and not necessarily, the tarot reading and so on and so forth. So there isn't someone else who spoke about this before Aleister Crowley? No, because Aleister Crowley got it from the Ascended Masters. It was Helena Blavatsky who was the first person to mention Ascended Masters. So all that Ascended Masters talk, that came from Helena Blavatsky, but nobody ever mentions her name. They just take the information. And this is what I'm talking about. So all this information that we use, we motherfuckers don't even know where it comes from, but I'm letting you know where it comes from, right? So he was getting it from the ancestors. The ancestors were speaking through Helena Blavatsky and through Aleister Crowley, again, with Aeons. So Ascended Masters were, you can say, the masters of whatever their chosen field was. Obviously they were dealing with high science, being able to transmit information to them directly. So they were the vessels, receiving the message from this alien race or this Aryan race, which is just talking about original people. They were just into high science. It's just original people that they were. It's time for this information to come back. So that's also another question here. And, we're going to be ending this shortly. Let's see where we at with it. Where we at? What are your thoughts about Crowley being considered the evilest person to ever live? Because I believe he named himself the Beast. And yes, Crowley was a liberal. Crowley was doing very, very demonic things. So there's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about he was doing some real malicious things. But the information that he presented to the world is unmatched at the same time. So I'm not saying separate the man from his works, but separate the man from his works. Because those works is, this masterful. The Book of Thoth is the most comprehensive book on the tarot ever written in recent times. I will say that in recent times. Nobody else went into the depths of the tarot like he did. And that's why I use his deck. Not because I necessarily agree with his tactics, but the imagery and the symbolism and the astrology and the way that he connected it is unlike anyone else. But I understand why, because he was connected to the so-called Ascended Masters, and he was receiving that information from a higher source that predated him. So it ain't even got to be about him taking credit, but this is coming from original people that were utilizing high science, transmitting this information to them. Why? Because they were open vessels at the time. They had to preserve the information, so they were using the correct vessels to do so. Right, so just to sum everything up, I just wanted to give you all the historical aspect, where these terms come from. So now you have people to study, you have books to read, so you can go back and do your homework, do your history. and, you know, and piece it together, you know, and paint the picture that is revealed to you, you know. So unless anyone has any questions, we will check out. Even stuff like the Necronomicon and the Cthulhu mythos is worth studying. It's all about what part of the underworld that you wanna go to. What's up, Dragon OG? It was Dragon OG who made this request. You know, shout out to you, big homie. You know what I mean? I saw the comment. You know what I mean? You always showing love, so it was no problem. I definitely had to show that love to you. You know what I mean? So it's all good. You know what I mean? Much love to you, big homie. You know, so when it comes to the Necronomicon and the Cthulhu mythos, again, that's another person. The Cthulhu mythos comes from H.P. Lovecraft, who is also from the 19th century. No coincidence there. So again, so all that is within the same time period. It's all within the same time period. So yes, if you're going to study the 19th century, you know, study the darker elements of the 19th century. You know, study the Purcell Beverly Randolph with the sex magic. Because the way he describes sex magic and the way it's taught today is completely different. Because it's watered down. So if you want that pure shit, you want that carbonated drink, you want the purity, then you know where to get it from, right? You know, I'm just like, why did I even roll this shit, right? I literally didn't. I've been talking 30 minutes. Just letting it be known, you know, when the spirit come through, everything else stops. You know what I mean? It's like I got the natural high going on, but I probably should finish rolling this up, right? At least, you know, make it ritual. Right. So again, unless anyone has any questions, you know, get into the underworld. But we all have our internal Aeons. So you may need to go through the age or the Aeon of Osiris to understand masculinity. Then go to the Aeon of Isis to understand femininity. The divine masculine and the divine feminine. Once you understand the divine masculine and the divine feminine, now you can go to futuristic thought. Now you can combine them together and allow them to operate as one energy instead of two separate energies. And once they begin to operate together, now you have enough power to penetrate into the fourth dimension or the underworld. The halls of Amenti. Remember, there's a portal underneath the pyramid. I talked about that when remember, for those who was around, when I was doing the Emerald Tablets of Thoth series, when I did the first 5 tablets, it was always talking about the halls of Amenti. It talked about how it was a portal underneath the pyramid in Egypt. So the Egyptians or the Kemetic people, they integrated the underworld, the Book of the Dead, the coffin text. They embraced the underworld because they understood that this is necessary. You have to go through the underworld in order to ascend. You got to go into the earth and come out of that bitch and shoot the fuck up to the 5th dimension. You can't get to the 5th dimension without going to the 4th, but the 4th is inside of the earth, as they say, the hollow earth. Right? What about Edgar Casey? I'm pretty sure he was born around the same time, so that's what I mean. I gave you the whole century, so study whoever stands out to you. You know, everybody's going to have their favorite. Everybody has whoever stands out to you. Study that person and integrate the teachings so that they can benefit your life. So whoever it is, study them. If it's useful information, then utilize it. If it don't work, it don't work. All right. I know y'all hear them ruthless ass lyrics. That's that Detroit shit. You know what I mean? The underworld for real. For those who don't know, 1 million people have been killed in Detroit in the history of the city. 1 million people have been bodied. No other city had, even Chicago and all that gang shit, LA and they shit, it don't match. The graveyard of the fucking US is Detroit, Michigan. There's no doubt about that. Just due to the raw numbers. You know what I mean? The raw numbers. So, alright. Is it live on the west side of Detroit? You already know it's going to always be live. That's the culture. That's the culture. Just like in LA, it's going to always be gang banging. It ain't going nowhere. That's just the culture. It is what it is. You know what I mean? But I just let y'all know in the last video. Just you know what I mean? As long as we not engaging in that. You know, we not killing our own people. Don't mean we ain't killers though. We assassins. but we make sure to direct that energy properly. All right, so I'm at like 9%. So I'm gonna check out. I'm just gonna, you know, light up the blunt for the ritual. You know, we gonna check out. So hopefully, you know, y'all do y'all studies. You know, fuck with the underworld, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, merge them together, penetrate the underworld. Then you ascend to the 5th dimension. So I'm giving you the process. All right. So we out here, Ann Arbor. You know what I mean? Shout out to Ann Arbor. Shout out to the whole Michigan. The dirty glove, as they call it, right? Brick City. You already know, you know what I mean? That's home. It's always going to be home. You know what I mean? We come directly from the underworld. That's why you see so much greatness, you know, come from that city. There's no denying that. You know what I mean? The Big Meech, you know what I mean? The Henry Fords with the car company. Detroit made it cool to have the cars and shit, made it affordable. So we already know it's a deep history. Then when, you know, the 2008 economic crash and all that, and it's just turned the whole city around. Detroit has, you know, it's up and down, up and down, up and down. But, you know, it's portals. Every city is like an energy grid. You know what I mean? It's just energy. So in Detroit, it was all about that underworld shit. You know, that's just the way it is. You know, I would say like New York is more like Saturn. You know, like Manhattan. You know what I mean? That's more like the Saturn energy. But again, you know, when you travel to these cities, you can decode the symbolisms so you can know what you're fucking with. You know what I mean? So you can tap into the spirits of your city. I always say that, right? Tap into the spirits of your city. But you got to actually be active in your city so the spirit can communicate with you. You know what I mean? Follow your heart. Follow your heart. Follow your intuition. Oh yeah, just in case y'all didn't know, start fucking with these lighters. The chemicals in the lighters, you know, make the experience. You know, we don't need no extra chemicals in our bodies. So fuck with these matches. You can get matches from the 99-cent store. You know what I mean? So fuck these lighters. I ain't used a lighter in months. So anyway. So unless anybody has any questions, we're gonna check out. So, what traditions, and this will be the last point here, what traditions maintain the underworld? Palo Mayombe. Palo Mayombe. You know, El Cristo Negro, right? Who told you about El Cristo Negro? The king of the underworld? Or Egypt? Osiris, who was the god of the what? Underworld. Kemetic Palo Mayombe. Y'all need some clues. Alright, so my phone is going off now. I'm at like 5%. So we're gonna get up out of here. Yeah, definitely. You know what I mean? Yeah, I see people ask me about different cities. Trust me, you know. I haven't been to every single city. I want y'all to let me know about the spirits of the city. Y'all let me know what's going on in y'all cities. But you gotta check out, I'm low on battery. So stay tuned to the next video. Peace. Underworld shit.